Tonight, we'll be taking a quiet journey through time, exploring some of the strangest, most unusual, and frankly, most unappetizing foods that people actually ate in ancient times. So settle in, let your breathing slow, and prepare yourself for a gentle, bizarre stroll through culinary history. We begin in ancient Rome, a civilization famous for its grandeur, engineering, and political drama. But the Romans had another lesser-known legacy: their exotic tastes in food. One of their most prized delicacies was something called garum. At its core, garum was a fermented fish sauce. To make it, Roman cooks would fill large clay vats with fish guts, heads, tails, bones, everything, and mix them with plenty of salt. These vats were then left in the hot sun for weeks or even months. The mixture would slowly ferment, breaking down into a strong-smelling liquid condiment. The resulting sauce was strained, bottled, and sold at high prices throughout the empire. Wealthy Romans would drizzle garum on nearly everything: bread, meats, even fruit. It was said to be salty, savory, and packed with flavor. But modern noses might disagree. Garum factories could be smelled from miles away, their scent drifting on the breeze like an invisible, pungent cloud. Now, let's gently step away from Rome and travel east to ancient China. Here, we find another unusual culinary creation: thousand-year-old eggs. Also known as century eggs, these were made by preserving duck or chicken eggs in a mixture of clay, ash, salt, quicklime, and rice hulls for several weeks or sometimes months. During this time, a chemical transformation occurred. The yolk would turn creamy and dark green, almost like soft cheese, while the white would become translucent and jelly-like, often with a brown or amber hue. Though they looked and smelled quite strong, sometimes described as resembling ammonia or sulfur, they were considered a delicacy. People enjoyed them sliced with pickled ginger or served with rice porridge. To many ancient diners, the intense, earthy taste was delightful, but to modern palates, it can be quite challenging. Now we drift further west into ancient Egypt. The Nile River provided a bountiful source of fish, grains, and fruits, but Egyptians also had a fondness for something more unusual: mummified meat. Some Egyptians, particularly wealthier families, preserved certain foods through salt curing and drying, similar to how they mummified bodies. Records show they would heavily salt ducks, geese, and even cuts of beef, then dry them in the sun until they were leathery and preserved for long journeys. Travelers and merchants carried these mummified meats with them across the desert. Though tough and chewy, they provided protein and were sometimes rehydrated by cooking in stews. In some cases, ancient tombs have been found containing preserved meats left as offerings, still recognizable thousands of years later. Now we softly drift northward to the lands of the ancient Celts. These people, known for their love of feasting and storytelling, enjoyed a dish called blood pudding. Made from the blood of animals like pigs or cattle, mixed with oats, fat, and spices, this dense, savory sausage was considered both nourishing and symbolic. It was often eaten during festivals or after successful hunts. While some cultures still enjoy blood sausages today, in ancient times it had strong ceremonial ties, representing strength, survival, and the spirit of the hunt. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture it. Roman aristocrats spooning fermented fish sauce onto figs. Chinese nobles savoring dark jelly-like eggs. Egyptian traders chewing tough, sun-dried meats in desert camps. Celtic warriors sharing thick, rich blood pudding around a fire. Strange? Yes. But these foods offered something beyond nourishment. They were part of their history, their beliefs, and their way of life. And we've only just begun this peculiar feast. In the next part of our sleepy journey, we'll explore even stranger delicacies, from jellyfish dishes to roasted dorse mice. For now, let yourself drift on these strange flavors of the past. Let's continue our gentle journey through the weirdest foods ever eaten in ancient times. Our next stop takes us back to ancient Rome, where diners enjoyed a dish that still shocks many today: roasted dormice. Yes, dormice, small, chubby rodents. These weren't just any rodents. They were specially bred for eating. Wealthy Romans kept them in terracotta pots called gliraria, designed to fatten them up in the dark. When ready, the dormice would be stuffed with a mixture of minced meat, pepper, nuts, and herbs, then roasted until crispy on the outside and tender inside. To ancient Romans, this was a rich delicacy served at lavish banquets to impress guests. Imagine the scene: silken couches, oil lamps flickering, and platters of golden-brown dormice arriving at the table. Strange as it sounds, roasted dormice remained popular for centuries among Rome's elite. Now, we drift gently eastward again to ancient Japan. Here, one of the most unusual dishes was made from jellyfish. While modern sushi lovers may find this familiar, ancient Japanese cooks had a special method of preparing jellyfish for eating. They would dry the jellyfish under the sun, then soak it in a mixture of vinegar, soy sauce, and sake to soften its texture. The result was a dish that was salty, slightly sweet, and pleasantly chewy. It was often eaten as an appetizer or as a side dish alongside rice and pickled vegetables. To the people of ancient Japan, jellyfish represented not only sustenance, but also a connection to the sea's bounty, an offering from nature itself. Now, let's wander south toward the islands of Polynesia. In these distant lands,
ancient Polynesians developed a unique fermented food called poi. Made from taro root, poi was created by pounding the starchy root into a paste and letting it ferment slowly over several days. The finished product had a slightly sour taste and a smooth, thick texture. Poi wasn't just food, it was part of nearly every ritual and feast. People would eat it with their fingers, scooping up the paste from communal bowls. Some batches of poi were left to ferment for weeks or even months, developing strong flavors that visitors might find startling. But to the Polynesians, it was a beloved staple, rich in both history and meaning. Now, we drift to the cold forests of Scandinavia, where ancient Norse warriors enjoyed an extremely unusual beverage, blood mead. This drink wasn't entirely mythical. Some sagas and accounts describe a drink made by mixing fermented honey with animal blood, usually from sacrificed livestock. The resulting mixture was thick, sweet, and metallic in taste. It was believed to offer strength and was often consumed during rituals honoring gods like Odin and Thor. Though it might sound unsettling, mead itself, without the blood, remained a common drink for centuries in Norse cultures. Now, let's take another soft breath and imagine a Roman banquet glowing by torchlight, the air thick with the scent of roasted dormice. A quiet Japanese garden where jellyfish dishes glisten on lacquered trays. And a tropical Polynesian hut where villagers gather around bowls of sticky, sour poi. And a smoky Norse hall where warriors drink dark mead from carved wooden cups. All around the world, ancient people found ways to preserve food, celebrate harvests, and honor their traditions, no matter how strange their recipes seem today. And still, our sleepy culinary adventure isn't over. In the next chapter, we'll taste even more oddities, including foods made from insects, reptiles, and some of the rarest ingredients in history. For now, let yourself drift gently into the ancient kitchens of the world. Our gentle journey through the strangest foods of ancient times now leads us into the wilder corners of human cuisine, into the world of insects, reptiles, and creatures many would never consider eating today. Let's begin in ancient Mesoamerica, home to civilizations like the Maya and the Aztecs. For these people, insects were not merely pests, they were valuable sources of protein. One of their prized delicacies was esquimales, also known as insect caviar. These were the tiny white larvae of ants harvested from the roots of agave plants. Gathering them was no easy task. Harvesters would carefully dig into the earth, avoiding painful bites from soldier ants guarding the nest. The reward, however, was considered worth it. Esquimales were soft and nutty in flavor, often fried in butter and spices or wrapped into tortillas. In Aztec markets, they were sold alongside other delicacies like grasshoppers, worms, and roasted beetles. Now we drift toward the sands of ancient Egypt once more. Here, crocodiles were not just feared, they were sometimes eaten. Historical records suggest that in some regions, Egyptians hunted crocodiles for their meat and hides. The meat was said to be tough but filling, often boiled or roasted over open fires. In some cases, crocodile fat was also rendered down and used in cooking, believed to have medicinal properties. Though crocodile worship existed in parts of Egypt, practicality often outweighed religious symbolism in remote areas. Now we softly travel to ancient Mesopotamia, where records from clay tablets reveal some surprisingly complex dishes, including one involving snake meat. Snakes were sometimes cooked in stews or roasted whole, seasoned with herbs like mint and coriander. Some believed that consuming snake meat could cure certain ailments or provide protective spiritual benefits. In Mesopotamian medical texts, snake-based recipes were listed as treatments for everything from fevers to mysterious ailments. Now we drift across the world to ancient Australia. Among Aboriginal communities, one of the most cherished traditional foods was the witchetty grub. These large, creamy white larvae were rich in fat and protein, often eaten raw or lightly roasted over hot coals. When cooked, they had a crispy exterior and a soft, nutty center. For many Aboriginal people, witchetty grubs weren't just food, they were an essential survival resource passed down through generations as part of their cultural knowledge of the land. Now, let's pause and take a deep breath. Picture it. Ancient Aztec farmers carefully harvesting tiny ant larvae beneath the sun. Egyptian hunters wading through reeds to catch crocodiles along the Nile. Sumerian cooks stirring snake meat into steaming pots, adding fragrant herbs. Aboriginal elders roasting plump grubs over glowing campfires beneath starlit skies. Though these meals might seem shocking to us today, they were vital, nourishing foods, deeply woven into the daily rhythms of ancient life. And still, the table of history holds even more surprises. In the next chapter of our sleepy adventure, we'll uncover the rarest and sometimes most bizarre ingredients ever used in ancient recipes. From exotic spices traded across thousands of miles, to fermented beverages made with ingredients you'll hardly believe. But for now, let your thoughts gently drift, floating through the winding markets and fireside gatherings of ancient peoples where no food was wasted and every meal told a story.
Our sleepy journey now carries us to the tables of the wealthy and powerful, where rare, exotic, and sometimes bizarre ingredients filled the kitchens of ancient kings, emperors, and nobles. We begin in the ancient Mediterranean, where spices were once worth more than gold. In the courts of Persia and Rome, cooks would prepare elaborate dishes using ingredients like silphium, a now extinct plant famed for its intense flavor and medicinal uses. Silphium was so highly prized that its image appeared on coins, and its roots, stems, and sap were used in everything from roasted meats to medicinal tonics. Some historians believe it had a garlicky, fennel-like taste with a strong, bittersweet aroma. It was often shaved over lamb, mixed into stews, or added to fish sauces. Silphium became so valuable that it was harvested to extinction, vanishing forever from kitchens and gardens alike. Now, we drift eastward to ancient India. Here,
Kings and wealthy merchants enjoyed a rare spice known as asafoetida, sometimes called devil's dung because of its strong, sulfurous smell. Though the scent could be overpowering, skilled cooks knew how to tame it, creating dishes with complex, savory flavors. Asafoetida was often used in vegetarian dishes, adding depth to lentil stews and roasted vegetables. Beyond cooking, it was believed to have powerful medicinal properties, used to treat stomach troubles and ward off evil spirits. Though modern cooks still use asafoetida in some parts of the world, its intense odor makes it one of the most polarizing spices in history. Now, we gently move into the grand palaces of ancient China, where rare and precious ingredients were signs of power and wealth. One such delicacy was bird's nest soup, made from the hardened saliva of swiftlets. These tiny birds built nests high on cave walls, and harvesting them was a dangerous task, requiring skilled climbers to carefully collect the fragile nests. Once cleaned and soaked, the nests turned into a gelatinous ingredient, prized for its subtle flavor and smooth texture. Believed to promote health and longevity, bird's nest soup was reserved for emperors and high-ranking officials. Now, take a deep breath and imagine Persian kings savoring dishes laced with rare golden silphium, its bittersweet aroma filling the banquet hall. Indian cooks slowly simmering asafoetida into rich, comforting stews. Chinese emperors sipping delicate, shimmering bird's nest soup from porcelain bowls. And Incan villagers sharing bowls of chicha, warmed by fires beneath the Andean stars. Each of these foods wasn't just strange or rare. They carried meaning, symbolizing wealth, health, or even divine favor. Strange as they may seem today, they were precious treasures of their time. And still, there's one final chapter left in our sleepy feast. In the last part of this gentle journey, we'll visit some of the most extreme, mythical, and mysterious dishes of the ancient world, meals that blurred the line between reality and legend. But for now, let yourself drift deeper, floating among spice markets and hidden feasting halls of long-forgotten empires.
Now, we enter the final chapter of this sleepy journey, where we explore the most mysterious, mythical, and extreme foods of the ancient world. These are dishes that blur the boundary between recorded history and legend. Meals whispered about in old scrolls and travelers' tales. We begin in ancient Greece. Among the philosophers and rulers, there were stories of a rare and unusual dish known as ambrosia, the fabled food of the gods. Though many believed ambrosia to be purely myth, some scholars suggest it may have been inspired by real ingredients. Some think it referred to rare sweet honey cakes, drenched in olive oil and sprinkled with fragrant herbs, served at lavish temple feasts. Others propose that ambrosia symbolized fermented honey drinks, like mead, believed to offer divine visions and long life. Regardless of its exact recipe, ambrosia was said to grant immortality, or at least
profound bliss. Now, we drift gently toward the lands of the ancient Phoenicians, skilled sailors and traders. Here, they spoke of a delicacy called purple sea snail sauce, one of the rarest, most difficult ingredients ever produced. The process was painstaking. Harvesters would gather thousands of small sea snails, then carefully crush them to extract a tiny amount of deep purple liquid. While this fluid is best known today for creating the famous Tyrian purple dye used in royal robes, some believe it may have also been used in small quantities as a seasoning, adding a briny, bittersweet flavor to rare dishes. The value of this ingredient was so high that it was literally worth its weight in silver, reserved only for kings and queens. Now we drift farther east to the shadowy courts of ancient India and Persia. Here, tales tell of an ingredient called pearl ash, believed to be made by burning precious pearls into fine powder. This powder was mixed with rare spices and served as part of elaborate drinks or desserts, symbolizing purity and spiritual power. Though the actual existence of pearl ash as food remains uncertain, records suggest that pearls, gold, and even ground gemstones were sometimes added to drinks or desserts for ceremonial purposes among royalty. Whether real or ritual, such ingredients show how the line between food and magic often blurred. Now, we slowly drift to the remote reaches of Siberia and the Arctic, where ancient shamans practiced a ritual involving a truly extreme delicacy, hallucinogenic mushrooms. These mushrooms were gathered in winter, carefully dried, and sometimes consumed directly or infused into special brews. It's believed they were used not only for spiritual journeys, but also in some ritual feasts, where the effects were said to transport the soul to distant realms. Some stories even suggest the mushrooms were passed from person to person through, unconventional means, as their psychoactive properties could survive the digestive process. While far from an everyday meal, these mushrooms held great importance in spiritual ceremonies, representing visions, healing, and connection to the natural world. Now, take one last deep breath. Picture it. Greek priests savoring honey-soaked cakes, believing them to be gifts from Olympus. Phoenician sailors trading priceless purple sauces along foreign shores. Persian royals sipping spiced wine sprinkled with gold and pearl dust. And Siberian shamans seated by icy fires sharing bowls of otherworldly brews beneath the northern lights. Throughout time, humans have sought not just to eat, but to connect with something greater through food. Whether through fermented fish sauces or pearl-infused drinks, through salted insects or honeyed ambrosia, every culture, every time has shaped its own strange, wondrous table. And as we end this sleepy story, let's remember, the foods that seem odd or shocking today were once treasured, symbols of survival, wealth, celebration, and belief. Now, allow your mind to drift fully into quiet rest, floating through forgotten markets and candlelit feasts, among faces long gone, but whose meals live on in history's soft whispers. Thank you for joining this strange,
cozy journey through the weirdest foods of ancient times. Sleep well and dream of simpler, stranger banquets.